Okay, YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV. Now, another quick game of interplanetary I Spy. Back to Mount Sharp in Gale Crater on Mars. And we're looking at Sol 1074. Now, there's a bunch of images here which caught my attention. And when you look at the page, there'll be links to all these, by the way, in the description, as usual. You just go down to here, and there's these two black ones here showing the moon of Phobos, or one of the moons of Mars or something. And then you have these 5 pictures here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in fact. Now, all these contain the background. In other words, they show the bottom of Mount Sharp with some interesting structures and what looks like water, liquid water. Now, you're not going to see them very well here until you get the full-size image, obviously. So I've got the full-size images here. So these are the ones you want. This, especially these 5 here, and the best one I think is probably this one in the middle, which is 5142. Okay, so that would be the main link. So I've got this. I've downloaded this. I've got it here, and I've done some enhancements. Now, first of all, I'll show you how I enhance these. I'll show you this image first because this is the one that I thought was the most interesting. Now, when you look at it like that, it doesn't look much. I appreciate that. It's very brown. It's got an orange filter over it, like they put over everything, which really does kind of blend everything together and stop you seeing any real detail in the background. Also, the cameras, as I've said many times before, the camera is quite low resolution. I thought it was actually 1.6 megabytes, but actually it's a 2 meg camera. But what they do is they crop the images down to make them about 1.6. When you times the width by the length, then you get 1.6. But actually, originally they're more like 2 megapixels when they are taken. But because they've been resized down and compressed, you've got compression lines and you've lost quite a bit of detail. Now that doesn't matter too much when you're looking at stuff in the foreground, like this rock here, but even the rocks in the foreground are out of focus, and in fact everything is out of focus because what they do, they have the camera set to infinity focus, which means this is for taking landscape shots. This means that nothing is in focus, but nothing is completely out of focus either. So even stuff in the foreground here looks pretty bad. So you can't see any detail anywhere. I'm sure this is deliberate because basically it means nothing's sharp, everything is blurred, and add to that the compression rates they use, it does destroy a lot of the data. But the thing that caught my eye straight away with this, now even in the raw image, is this flat area here going right through the middle. This looks like water. Now I haven't done anything to this, this is completely raw, and you can see what look like ripples here. Now, as I've said before, it's a bit difficult with Mount Sharp because there is lots of blue sand at the bottom of Mount Sharp, which can be seen in the high-rise images also from the MRO. But I don't think this is sand, mainly because there's a reflection here. Now, you're not going to see it much yet, but when I enhance it, you will. And also, if you look at the top of the image here, there's something very interesting here. This looks like another structure. Now, do I think it's a building? Maybe. Do I think it's a ship? A shipwreck? More likely. And now, it doesn't look much at the moment, but when you look at it and use a bit of critical thinking, it's very different in colour to the surrounding rocks and strata here, which are generally sort of brown and a bit bluish. This is sort of a bright, sort of creamy colour. Now, of course, the colours are wrong on this, but when you see what I've done to it, you'll see what I mean. But it does have some rather interesting structures in here. You can see here that there's a sort of rectangular structure there. It looks like a ship that's actually listed over onto its side and is rotting away, and it may have been there for a very long time. And you can see the back of it here. There's the back of the ship. So, without further ado, I'll show you the enhancements. Now, here's that image again, the raw image, and here's the enhancement. Now, what I've done to this is I've enlarged it and I've white balanced it and I've added quite a lot of contrast to it and a bit of brightness, and that's what you get, and that's what basically very similar to the images you get from the other rovers. What they look like, they're much bluer and darker, and also these reflect more of the colours you see from space, from the MRO high-rise images. So I know that this is clearer, this is more like the real colours of Mount Sharp, because I've compared it to the satellite images from multiple satellites, not just one. So these are the actual colours, and this is much more like what it would look like to the naked eye. And there you can see this a lot better. The water here, now this I really do think is water. Now I may have said this in other videos, and I may have hinted on it, said, well, this could be, it just could be sand that looks like water because it's got ripples in it, because sand does tend to have ripples, but this seems to have a reflection. And when you look at it up close, it does look like water. What else can it be? I mean, you've got this dark thing here, this kind of rocky outcrop here, and you've got this diagonal sort of sloping part to it, and you can kind of see that here, and you've got this dark section here, and there's a dark bit of water there, so that's reflected the detail from the background, which it should do if it's water. There's also a dark patch here, and there's sort of dark patch there. It's basically a reflection is basically like a mirror, and you've got a very long straight line here, which looks to me like water. This water's edge here, because obviously water will find its own level. Well, no, obviously the image is quite badly damaged. You can see some quite large pixelated areas here, and image distortion. But even so, when you look at this, you've got this dark area here with a slope, and there's a dark area here with a slope to it as well. And if I were to darken it even more, it'd be more obvious. So it looks like water, liquid water. Now I have said in some of my previous videos a while back, probably about 6 months, a year ago, year and a half ago even, that I would expect at some point for there to be liquid water in the bottom of Mount Sharp, because this is the lowest point. It's 4.5 kilometres down, which is a long way down. It's a good few miles down, and it's very, very low in the water table. And also, the Gale Crater itself is very warm and has geothermal heat coming from below, as well as the fact that it's in near the equator and gets quite hot during the day. This may well freeze at night, but it's still water. Liquid water is liquid water, and there's probably stuff living in that water. Some of the things I've showed you recently lead me to believe that there are still small creatures living in Gale Crater, things like crabs and snakes and lizards and that kind of thing. And if this is one of the few places where there is liquid water, then of course they would come here to drink. Now whether that water is very drinkable, I don't know. It could be very salty, it could be very acidic, don't know. But here's the main thing. And this is what looks like a ship. Now you can clearly see here that there's a very straight line there. Now that looks like the back end of the ship, where it's tilted over away from us, or perhaps it's tilted towards us. Don't really know, but that looks very odd. There's a completely straight line there, and this whole thing is a long straight structure, and you've got some interesting structures in here which get a bit too blurry when you go too close, but there's something there. Now I've done some more enhancements of that, and I basically cropped the top of the image off, and I've selected the area and really up the contrast and darkened it a bit as well. And there you go. And I've sharpened it up a bit. Now the image does break up quite badly when you sharpen it. As you can see, it's starting to break up here. So some of this detail is pixelation and damage. But apart from that, because this is very large, I mean, I don't know how long this thing is, 60 foot long, possibly a bit longer, couldn't tell you exactly. Because it's quite large, there is some detail to be had, and the thing that I thought that caught my eye initially was the back here on the right. A very straight edge and dark part to it there, which looks like the back end of a boat that's listed over, and there's this structure here, and there's this structure, and there's what looks like a letter R there. Now, it probably isn't a letter R, it just looks like one. But there's something interesting here. Now, unfortunately, a lot of the information has been lost due to compression, and you can only see some of the larger details. But you can see a very straight part here, and it looks like a rectangular structure here. And there's this rectangular structure here on top, and another very strange tangled bit of structure there. And it also kind of seems almost like there's a reflection underneath it, almost like this is water here, just below this blue patch here. It almost seems like it's reflecting into that. I could be wrong, but if you look at the front here, you've got that sort of curved structure, and then another one below it, almost exactly the same. Now that to me looks like a reflection. I could be wrong. It's very hard to tell when you've got images which are this badly damaged and low quality. But there's definitely something there, and to me it looks like another ship. I mean, I have found others. A lot of people have criticised me for that, but that's to be expected. I mean, they're not good. Not everyone's going to be bowled over and accept all this stuff immediately. It's going to take a while to permeate through. But other people are finding boats and structures and buildings around Mount Sharp now, and some people have been for a number of years since the early days of the rover. So there we go. And there were a couple of other things in some of these other images that are from the same sol. There was this one. Now, where's the source image? That's it's that one there. 2E01. Now, that also doesn't look like much when you look at it raw. It's very pasty and brown. But if you look right at the top here, there's a building, and it looks like a bunker with a arched structure here. Even in the raw image, that stands out. And the roof part to it here is very light compared to most of this rock here. And it's got this weird sort of almost translucent looking concrete in front of it, which goes right along here, which is very strange. I'll show you the enhancement because that is very pasty, that image. Here's the enhancement. And I've done this exactly the same here. I've white balanced it and up the contrast and brightness and darkness. Played around with that. I'll show you how I do that in a minute. Here we go. There's what looks like a bunker at the back of this image with a roof here. And you can even see like a window or a couple of windows perhaps. Now, I haven't really enhanced it that much yet. And there looks to be more water down here, just here. I haven't enhanced it much yet, so I'll show you the enhancement. Here's the first enhancement I did. This is that thing right at the back. Now, unfortunately, this is right at the top of the image, so you've got a lot of image distortion here, even more than you would get in the foreground. Because obviously, the further away things are on a low-res camera, the more pixelated they're going to look, and also the more vague and less detail there's going to be because it's a low-res camera. So there we go. No, I think that was the main enhancement. There's the first enhancement. And the colours are starting to break up here. You've got yellow and blue coming out here a bit. But that does say to me that there's probably a yellowish tint to this roof. It's got some yellow there, but the pixelation is exaggerating it probably, and it's struggling to work out how much to put in the image because it's been damaged and also it's low resolution. But when I show you the other enhancement, notice when I took a little bit of time on this, and I just darkened it a bit more and highlighted it a bit more, and you can see what looks like a window here and a possible one here, and there's some structures in there. I mean, you're never going to see a great amount of detail with something that far away. It's about 1 kilometre away approximately, and it's not a huge structure. It's not that big, but it does look like a structure, an intelligent structure. It doesn't look natural. It looks like an actual bunker or some kind of building. Let's look at the main image again, get an idea of scale. So this is approximately about 1 kilometre away. I couldn't tell you exactly. is about 1 kilometre. I would say this is probably 100 metres, probably less than that actually, 50 metres to this water here. So it could be a lot less. It could only be a couple of 100 metres altogether. It's very deceptive, Mount Sharp. The way it slopes, it drops down in this river or lake bed here, and then it kind of steps up, and then it steps up, and then it steps up. It's got lots of graduations. And doesn't look anywhere near as tall as it should do in the images. I mean, it's supposed to be a few miles tall, but it never looks that tall. It only ever looks about 500 meters tall in any of the images, or maybe 1 kilometre tall, but it never looks as tall as it should. Now, a lot of that is down to the fact that a lot of the images are taken from very low down, using the nav cam and stuff like that. So if you look at the nav cam images on the rover, they're almost right up near the ground, so they're much lower down, and as are the has cams, even lower. But I do wonder whether it's really quite as big as we're told it is. It's very deceptive. In some areas it does look like it's been airbrushed and faked. It's not completely fake, but some of the structures have been airbrushed out of it, I'm sure. But yeah, that was that one, the bunker. Now, I thought that was pretty cool because you really don't need to enhance it much to see that. It was pretty obvious that, even without doing anything, you can see it. And there was other stuff here. There looks to be some kind of interesting stuff in this one. There may be a boat buried here, or some kind of structure here. I'll do some extra enhancements of that and show you that. I haven't done it yet. I'll put those in at the end. But that was interesting. There's some weird stuff in these backgrounds, and there was this one here which really perplexed me, and I'm still trying to figure out what's going on in this one. It looks to be like some buildings here, but this one is particularly badly damaged, this image. Now, they're all damaged, but the detail in this one is very hard to see because the filter has just kind of ruined it. But there are some buildings in here. There's another one, there's one here, and there's another one here. And there's what looks like, now I'm not saying this is a sphinx, but I'm just saying from this angle, it looks like a sphinx head, just here, with a nose and an eye and a forehead going back here, and a sort of mouth down here, and a chin. But it's probably just a rock that looks like one, but what's rather strange is the structure in front of it looks like a building here, and there's this kind of ramp that leads up to it with steps on it. You can just about make out some steps coming up here, and that kind of leads down to what looks like a building here. Now, I appreciate you probably can't see that very well. I'll show you the enhancement. Here's the first enhancement. Let that load up. There we go. And now you can see something. Here's that what looks like a sphinx head here, and what looks like a possible building here. But there's something here, but it's so kind of blurred out and vague and blocked out that you really can't see any detail. But this looks odd, this structure here, because it's very light and much more reflective than the surrounding area. It's much lighter. So let's show the sharpened up version of that. I clipped the top out, and this is what I got. Now, this is even worse quality than the others for some reason. It's almost like this has been obfuscated deliberately by the looks of it. But there's something there. I couldn't tell you exactly what these are. This looks like a building here and a possible building there. There's something there which is rectangular. You can see these parallel lines going through it. But it's so vagued out, it's really hard to say. But this sphinx looking thing was cool. It's probably just a rock that looks a bit like a sphinx from this angle. When you sharpen it up, it looks less like one. But who knows? You never know. You never know with these things. Stranger things have been seen on Mars. So never rule anything out. You've got to keep an open mind when it comes to these Mars images. So that was about it for this one. I'll quickly show you how I do that processing to the image. Here's that one with what looks like a ship here. This is a very light structure, long structure at the back here. So what I do, first thing I do is enlarge it. So I go to the size. Now, I always enlarge using a bilinear enlargement. As you can see here, you've got smart size, bicubic, bilinear, pixel resize, weighted average. I only use weighted average if I'm reducing the size of an image. But if I'm going up, I use bilinear because that's the best quality. So I use bilinear enlargement. Now here's the resolution. It says 200 pixels per inch. I just add a 0 in there because that's nice and quick. And then I will probably take it starts off at 1344 wide. So I generally enlarge things by 2 or 3 times, not usually more than 4 times, because it starts to lose definition if you do that. So let's go up to 3000, because that's almost 3 times the size, but not huge. It's not going to blow up your hard drive. Right, okay. And then what I normally do then is I white balance it straight away, adjust. Now on this particular program, it's called automatic color balance. Now what this does, it changes the color temperature. I've got it set near sunlight, which is effectively the same effect as using white balance. Okay, and then I'm going to blur it to get rid of some of these blocks and pixelation marks. Blur. The Gaussian blur is the one to use. Now this is quite bad, so it needs to be around 1.8. But generally, if the image isn't too bad, about 1 or 1.2 would do it. But this looks like, and that's too much. Let's go to 1.4. Okay. So that's got rid of those blocks and lines, compression lines. So that's smoothed the image out a bit, and now we can play with the contrast. It's going quite hard. -15 brightness, +15 contrast, and again, let's go in again and again. So that's starting to show something now. You can actually see some detail. It's still pixelated, and there's still lots of damage to the image, but you can see the water now. In fact, let's add a bit of brightness to that. So let's go in with a bit of brightness. Let's brighten that up a little bit. There we go. And let's use a bit of clarify. Now the clarify is a contrast tool, but it's on quite a low setting. That adds more contrast, so we go brighter again, maybe, and again. Yeah, that's about right. So now it's actually looking like a real photograph of a real scene instead of a fake one. And there's the water. What else can I say? Look at it. That looks like liquid water, and quite a lot of it as well. And I would expect there to be a lot more to come. Now, usually they manage to avoid photographing this water. They usually skirt round it with the rover, and this is probably also why they haven't crossed and gone up to Mount Sharp yet, because it's too wet down here and the rover would sink. And as far as I know, it's not amphibious, so maybe that's why they're skirting all the way around Mount Sharp in a sort of rather chicken-like fashion, because they don't want to show the water and they don't want to get stuck in the mud, which is perfectly logical. So there we go. There's that boat or ship. Possible ship, and the water below it. There we go. Okay, I will have all these images in at the end of the video for you to look at in closer detail, and all the links will be below. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you soon.